Welcome everybody to another episode of Haunted Vermont. It might go beyond again. I'm not even sure anymore. But anyway, we have an awesome guest again from, once again, the Small Town Monsters crew. But this time it's awesome because I hope Heather will want to come back on. Anyway, did I mention her name was Heather? Her name was Heather Moser. So none other than Heather. Welcome aboard.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Heather, so, before we get into this topic again of like what we had the pleasure with talking with Ronald with, which is Spooklights again, just give us a little backstory of who you are. Like, I guess, and what I mean by that term is like, let's start off with the beginning. So what made you want to even step into this, this weird realm of the universe of the paranormal to begin with, to you hooking up with Small Town Monsters?
Yeah, so it started when I was little. I remember being a huge fan of Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, and watching that every week that it came on with my parents. At that point in time, I had the phone number memorized that they would give you at the end if you had any tips or info. So I loved that show. It terrified me, but I couldn't get enough of it. And that's kind of the theme for everything else. Then I remember like growing up, like even in elementary school, the one book at our little school library that you were practically on a waiting list to get a hold of was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And the most frightening thing about that, of course, were the illustrations, more so than the stories themselves. And, that was just something that always fascinated me. I also grew up with my mother telling me about the house she grew up in being haunted. So that was, there wasn't a question to me whether ghosts existed. It was just, yeah, I know they exist. My mom grew up in a haunted house. Like, of course, why would mom make that up, And then there were also, of course, people around that had Bigfoot encounters. There was someone actually in my grade whose family had multiple encounters on their property, and the kid rode the same bus as me, so he was just over the hill. It wasn't that far away, and that was another thing that was just, oh yeah, Bigfoot's around kind of thing. When it came to Small Town Monsters, though, what ultimately happened was that despite this lifelong interest in my own delving into the weird on my own, Small Town Monsters came across my radar when Seth put out the first movie, which was the Minerva Monster. And that caught my attention because I live in the town. Well, right now I live in Minerva, actually. But growing up, I was in the town right next to Minerva. So small communities, everybody starts talking. Hey, somebody's making a movie about our area, and it's about Bigfoot. And of course, that was really exciting at the time. Finding Bigfoot was out, and it had started to gain some traction, and it was just something I was super interested in. So I started to pay attention to what Small Town Monsters did. Oh, kitty! Oh, I have a black kitty too with a purple collar. He's not right next to me, but anyway.
He just, so his name is Ryder. He is trying to eat plastic right now, and that purple collar is that flea tick collar that's good for like 7 months.
Yep, so, same thing on mine. Same thing on mine.
He's just being a little shithead right now.
Yeah, no, that's what kitties do. They have the prerogative to do that. But yeah, so I started following what Small Town Monsters was doing, and started talking with Seth online. Went to a few premieres, and then we got to a point where he had announced that they were going to do something on the Bell Witch. And I had already been doing research into cursed objects and the Bell Witch story itself. So I reached out and said, hey, if you ever want a researcher, I'm more than willing to help. And he was like, actually, I think we could utilize that at this stage of the company. So he brought me on as a researcher at first, and then I've worked my way up to be producer and director and a writer, and pretty much everything there is to do for the most part, except editing. I don't do editing, but I've had a chance to try the directing thing and produce a lot, and the research and reaching out to witnesses and experts, and yeah, it's been a good time. It's just grown exponentially since then.
No, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you and Courtney just put out your very first debut there. Oh my God, the Monroe Monster. Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah. So I guess real quick, so talk to us about that for a minute. Though I mean, that must have been like a little bit of a nerve wracking thing for both of you because like your first project really like that with directing and stuff. So it's like
Hmm.
because maybe we can talk a little bit about it. But I mean, I met you through, the Bennington Triangle thing. But anyway, I mean, you must have
Yeah.
done a lot of interviews by now. So I guess in this aspect, though, like, was there any nerve wracking parts? I guess.
So for the Monroe Monster, there definitely was for Courtney and I, because it was the first time that we were by ourselves. It was literally just the two of us out filming. Like when you met us, I mean, it was just the two of us when we met you, but
Hmm.
we were there with the whole crew. Everybody was just split off and doing other things. So if anything came up, Seth was going to be there. We could ask for Seth's guidance. We had extra people to kind of bounce ideas off of. But when it came to this project, it was literally Courtney and I going on our own to Michigan, and interviewing people. And uh, it was nerve wracking in that aspect, that we had to make some decisions that normally just offhandedly you might ask Seth for his input, but he wasn't there, so we had to make the call. But it's actually been pretty freeing in the
The
back half of
creative.
things. Yeah, because it's kind of, I think, given us both more I can't even think of the word, like more confidence to go forward with other projects potentially in the future that are just ours.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha. Yeah.
so that's, I'm looking forward to that, and feeling more comfortable maybe pitching some ideas that
Hmm.
before I wasn't even thinking about it, outside of what I was told to do. Like we always, I help on the creative end of things, and I help brainstorm movie ideas and show ideas and things like that. But ultimately, the last say is from Seth. You can pitch out all these ideas, and then Seth has to approve them. Where and he would still have to approve anything I pitch now too. But I feel like I've got more leeway at this point, to some more freedom to come up with ideas and prove, hey, we went and did this. So just send us out for a couple days and see what we can bring back.
Right, right. So does that mean like I'm trying to think of an example here. So like as you were just saying with Steph and the crew when I first kind of met you guys were out doing like the B rolls and stuff like that. So in this
Mhm.
case, you and Courtney had to do all the B rolls and everything then, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We had to do all the interviews and we had to do all the B-roll. Um, Everything else was pretty much the same as normal. I mean, I'm usually with projects the one that's lining up the interviews and things, so that was no different than what I normally do. And I usually do a lot of the interviews, so that wasn't too much of a difference. But the planning the schedule out to integrate B-roll, knowing that there was no one else who was going to get it but us, we couldn't split the crew, we had to be together. So and it was a tight schedule too. We were gone less than 48 hours to get that filmed. So it was a lot of go go go.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, I always what you could like sought out to do and executed it and then presented it, which I bet was probably the most nerve wracking part too, because it's your baby per se, so it's just like
Yeah,
once it's out there, that's it. So
yeah,
but from the way I watched it and stuff, it was just like wow, like for their first time. I mean, I would say it's a lot better than what I would probably do, but at the same time, right now I'm a one man crew, so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And it's tough. It's tough. I mean, um, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do any of this alone. It just wouldn't be possible. It's too much of a task. There's too many moving pieces to for just one person to handle on a larger scale. So yeah,
right.
kudos to you for keeping this going, because just by yourself, because that in itself is a task for sure.
Well. to be fair, I mean, I did take a 2 year hiatus from this, and then when I came back, that's when I found Small Town Monsters. I think, like when I was
Mm-hmm.
even talking to Alexander Pedikov about this, I
Mm-hmm.
was like trying to remember too, because I can't remember if it was because I was doing the other podcasting at the other time, so we were getting like press release stuff from this I forget his name right now, Justin Cook, I think. Anyway, so I don't remember if it was from that or if it was just stumbling upon the documentaries on Prime. It's hard to really
Mm-hmm.
remember anyway, but
Yeah.
either way, once I found Small Town Monsters, especially from On the Trail of Champ, I was like, oh, what else do they do? Like what else did they talk about? And then I learned like On the Trail of Champ was literally mainly the last Vermont one anyway. And then
Mm-hmm.
like Alec Pedikov told me that he actually did one for his Strange Places, which was the
Mm-hmm.
secret UFO base there in oh my god, what is it, East Mountain, and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh, why did I know about this and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
so once again, it kind of broadens of like, oh, okay, well, I mean, at least they're around, but then you got to realize, it's Alex. If I may say, it's kind of like you, like he was kind of brought in because he was more of a how did he word it, like an outside creator before
Yeah.
coming in, I think. And
Yeah.
like it's just it's amazing that like that other people with the creative freedom that Seth allowed you and Courtney to do, like you don't hear that much anymore, and that's amazing. That's what I even tried to do when I even did my short little B movie. It's like I'm here to just not just make a short film based on legend, but we all got to have fun doing it, because if not, then we're all going to
No.
hate each other at the end. So
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's the thing that keeps us going is that, I mean, there's no way around it. The job is stressful. And it's stressful because mainly because you've got timetables that you have to adhere to. Like you have deadlines. We have deadlines that we have to do. Stuff has to be released. Of course, this is our job. So like we have to make it we have to make it or the company folds, right? So that's the stressful part is keeping things on a steady, consistent schedule, keeping the quality up, I think, is without question. It's just that it's a lot. And it seems like the more we put out, of course, the more we want to put out to keep up with that rhythm. But our crew is not that big. It's a lot. Alex is like he's like a self-contained unit, right? He does pretty much everything on his own. But other than that, we have 4 crew members from Ohio. We've got Alex out in New Hampshire. And then we have Aaron in Texas. That's our crew. Like that's the crew. And then every once in a while we get a chance to work with other creators. Like we worked with Hellbent Holler, which they did the majority of the work on
fantastic
that.
job, by the way.
Oh, I know, right? I was so excited when I saw that. I was like, yes, they killed it. So we're starting to have some like guest involvement and stuff, but in general, the core group is just the 6 of us, and that can be stressful because it's a lot. Even for 6 people, it's a lot to keep going. But what keeps us going are these stories and the awesome people you meet. Like there's fun. It has to be fun. I guess this is what I'm trying to say. Like you said, you've got to have fun because otherwise I wouldn't be able to deal with this level of stress if I didn't like what I was doing. I just wouldn't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that 100%. I think that's why I kick my ass sometimes, my own ass anyway, when it comes to the stuff that I want to do, because it's like, again, I'm back to the one man crew thing. Here's an
Mhm.
example that I will throw out there. So recently, this past Friday, actually, so what would that have been? August 8th. I literally, right after work, went, okay, you know what? I'm going to go find Carl. And I did. And what are we,
Yeah.
right after work, I grabbed my stuff and I went out to set my sight to find him. And I did. But now, maybe I should have waited another day because by the time I got there, I had everything that I thought was going to work because I had plans of how I like to do things now. And
Mm.
so anyway, out of all the stuff that I brought, one camcorder worked. And everything else that I had with me, like my EMF and stuff, because I like to now take a separate camcorder with my EMF and focus on the EMF. So that way, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking at it, at least the camera is. So if it goes off and I don't see it, there it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I
Yeah.
wanted to do that while with Carl, while doing like a little small EVP session, which I have caught in something. I just don't know what the responses are right yet now, which I thought was
Mm.
interesting. So, and then on top of that, I just heard my friends and my fellow paranormal team, they just called out, they just got a house call out in Bennington for a possible Sasquatch activity.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, we've had a mysterious light show up in my area, which is like a 9-minute walk for me. And I'm trying to figure out, well, is this a drone? Is this like, what is it? Because the first time it happened was August 2nd. And then the second time that it quote came back, and I'm only saying that because this time it is the same thing. It's not as bright as it was, and it's smaller than the first time it came around. So again, it's like, well, maybe it's a drone. Hard to say though. But I'm trying to look at every aspect because during the first time it came, there was like a show in the fairground because it's right by the fairground. So it was like a truck show. It had some light show apparently, but it also had like cranes that were holding up banners. So I personally thought, well, maybe it's a giant crane holding like a floodlight. But the more you look at the video and you can zoom in, the more you start to realize that can't be a crane that's holding up a floodlight. So what is it? I don't know. I don't want to say UAP yet, but because I'm trying to eliminate all the possibilities first before I just say, yeah, that's a UAP.
Right, right. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. But okay, so Heather, let's dive in a little bit to what I wanted to talk about with you anyway, because I'm, trying to think where to begin here. Because with Ronald, well, I guess we'll start from the beginning, really, which is really so you guys set out. You weren't real well. You can answer it better, but this is from I guess from me trying to remember too. Is you were out there with the crew. I don't think you were really behind the camera, but you were just there observing. I think would be the best way to put it, and that's for the web series Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about that because I know originally you had this web series, and then all of a sudden last year, 2024, July maybe, I forget. You could correct me, but you guys put out that short from Tyler Hall, The Phantom Light, which
Yeah.
you did take some of that footage and kind of had Tyler turn it into that what you guys call short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we, whatever year the series was, Sasquatch Unearthed, it was our first one. We've done different iterations of Sasquatch Unearthed since then, but Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge was the first one, and we went to the Chestnut Ridge, which is in southwestern Pennsylvania, and we went there because, like as the title Sasquatch Unearthed, we were looking for Bigfoot, and there has been a lot of activity in Chestnut Ridge of all kinds of weird stuff, not just Bigfoot, obviously, but that's where we were going to start. So we were taken to a location by a couple people who have been investigating that location. It's not something that they are public about putting out there. They don't want people showing up. And honestly, you'd have to go in with the right kind of vehicle anyway, or you're not making it because the ruts are so deep. It's so steep. It's pretty treacherous. So Anyway, we were there filming, and yes, I don't, except when Courtney and I are by ourselves, I don't hold a camera. I don't run a camera or anything like that. And even when we are by ourselves, it's very limited that I touch the camera. So on these particular shoots, we were out at night and doing like a night investigation. And I was back behind the cameras altogether because I'm not supposed to be in that series, so I can't be seen on camera. Like, it's just not part of, it wasn't part of my job at the time. We were focusing on the investigators themselves. So the crew was split up into different groups. I think at that point we had the two different groups, and I was with Ron on my end. Yeah, Ron was there, and Tom Mihawk was the guy that comes in like a pivotal piece here in a minute. But anyway, we were doing the typical Bigfoot stuff, somebody like tree knock, howl kind of things between the two groups, even though we were a good distance away from each other. And weird stuff started happening. There was an instance where we heard what sounded like a wind chime, I guess is the best way to describe it. That was the first time that I'd heard anything like that. In this particular location, there is a cemetery just a little ways up the hill, and we thought, well, maybe somebody left a wind chime at a stone. So we went and looked. There's no wind chimes there. So we don't know where that sound came from. But what ended up happening shortly after that is we would see this. This went throughout the evening. I don't even know. I can't recall the exact length of time that all this happened, but there were like two separate instances of these lights. The one that sticks out to me the most is the one where my group, we saw two lights that were about basketball sized, and I would say 3 feet off the ground, probably. And one was red, one was white. And there was a path that they were on each side of the path, and it almost looked like, from a distance, it would almost look like if a car were parked sideways and had like their parking lights on. That's the distance between each other that they were. So, except there wasn't a car between them. There was no vehicle. It was just, and it wouldn't make sense for a car to be parked that way anyway because it's trees on either side. But anyway, the light was bright enough that you could see the reflection in a puddle that was on the ground because it had rained not that far before then, but you could see it reflecting off of the water in the puddle. But the one guy in the group with us, Tom Mihawk, decided that he was going to go closer for whatever reason. He went toward the light. I didn't see what happened to them because I couldn't go in the same direction exactly where they were. But I have heard Tom say that the lights came toward each other as he got closer. And then before he could like reach out and touch it, they disappeared. But that was the one that really shook me because it was just, I don't know, it was impressive both in the fact that there were two different colors and the size. They were decent size, like basketball size. It was no small feet. And like I said, the reflection off of the puddle, I'm like, okay, so this is clearly emanating light. It's not, I don't know. It kind of blew my mind. And so that was the one thing that happened on that shoot that night. And the other thing that was occurring with lights was that the two teams that were separate, we got to a point where we were kind of going to meet each other and walk down this path. So we were facing one another, but we started to see what looked like a headlamp, like somebody had a headlamp on and they were walking down the road, just the kind of the cadence of that. And it was
not
bright.
To cut you off real quick, Heather,
Yeah.
But when you were seeing this light, like, would you say you were bobbing, like I did like you and I were walking with a headlamp?
Yeah, we absolutely thought that somebody was walking with a headlamp on because of the way that it was moving, the same bobbing up and down. And we radioed, because we had walkie-talkies, we radioed the other group and we're like, are you headed this way? You got your light on? And they're like, no, we don't, that's not us, that's you. And we're like, no, we don't have a light. And so they were seeing it from their side, and we were both sides seeing it, I guess is the best way to put it. And we both thought it was the other group, but it wasn't. And that we actually were able to get on camera. That did make the episode. It was something that was able to be picked up, because also there were some things, since we've gone back to the ridge, to that location, other times that lights have shown up, they like flicker, and they're not super bright. They're not really big. Almost like lightning bugs, but different colors. They're just, it's not lightning bugs. I've grown up with lightning bugs around. Like, that's not what it is. And those are really hard to pick up.
Yes, and I'm actually really glad that you just brought that up with the lightning bugs and the fireflies, because that is one thing I did not get a chance to ask Ronald, because again, he was on a time restraint. So one of the notes I actually have is, well, how can you tell if it wasn't, a bug, as in this case a lightning bug, a beetle, or a firefly? And as you kind of just mentioned, well, it's kind of hard to, those are they don't illuminate bright enough to really catch it, and if anything, they only last, I don't know, like maybe a second and a half, maybe. It all depends, I think.
Yeah. And the thing with like lightning bugs, I mean, when I go outside, because I live in the country now, and this is the time of year for lightning bugs. You go outside, you're going to see them in the tall weeds, and you're going to see them up in the trees too. And there's a very particular way that they flash, and they don't flash necessarily in the same spot because they're flying around and moving, but there's just a particular color to them. There's a particular length of time that they flash, and these things that were happening on the ridge, these happened at different times of the year. So when I was there with Tyler for the Phantom Lights filming, and we saw them, I guess that was warmer weather, if I remember correctly. But when we were there filming for the ridge, it was cold.
Winter, I think.
Yeah, it was like early spring or something, or late spring, late winter. Yeah, anyway, it was cold. That's what I remember. It was cold. But the lights that were in the trees were fainter than a lightning bug. That's how I would put it. They weren't as bright and distinctive as lightning bug, but they were super quick, almost like you think your eyes are messing with you. Except other people were seeing it. So it wasn't just like other people were describing the exact same thing. And that's a tough thing, I think, when it comes to this particular phenomena as well. I suppose it goes with anything, but I don't know. For me, it's harder. I think it's harder to verify with lights, but it's hard to ask the people with you, like, did you see something? And then if they're like, yeah, I saw a light, and then you're like, what color was the light? Like, you don't want to lead them and be like, yeah, I saw a blue one, or anything like that, because then you're kind of, potentially
you're trying to get that validation. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, it everybody saw it, especially when we were doing the ridge, Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge. And there were even people on the crew that were pretty skeptical. And they're still pretty skeptical, but they were pretty shaken by it. Just because we didn't set out for that anyway. Right. So it caught us off guard for that to occur. But even if we did, what we saw was so clear that I think it would have thrown us for a loop anyway, that we couldn't have asked for a better example of spook lights or ghost lights or whatever you want to call them.
Right. Well, and like Ronald and I were kind of talking, like there are so many rabbit holes you can go down here with these lights, because I mean, you can call them fairy lights, spirit lights. They could be what was it, lost souls or something. Then there's that whole UAP, I think. And there's probably something else, but during your research too, because I guess you could maybe shine into this too. So even though you guys were there for the Sasquatch, and then you see these mysterious lights, which again, it goes back to these reports and eyewitnesses that sometimes even say, like, kind of think of it, right before I saw the Sasquatch or whatever, heard a tree knock or a whoop or whatever, they saw these mysterious lights, or they'll witness the encounter first with the Sasquatch, and then a few days later, that's when they see these lights. Sometimes they don't even see them at all. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, during your research and maybe from all your interviews and stuff, have you come to a conclusion of how you look at that too?
No, absolutely not. I have no idea how they're connected. I don't know if they are. I know that, like you said, there are a lot of people that have had stories where they do coincide in some way, the lights and Sasquatch activity. Even here, we did an entire series here on this property called the Bigfoot Project, because we were having Sasquatch activity here on my farm. And
Oh wow.
even here, yes, there was Sasquatch activity without a doubt. Also, there were nights that we did see lights in the woods. I don't know if they're related, or if there's just a lot of weird stuff happening in in one place. I have no idea. And there are people that, I mean, I'm trying to think of people that have had encounters with lights that didn't also have some sort of Sasquatch encounter. I know that it's
Sometimes,
happened. I just can't think of any off the
mhm.
top of my head.
Well, I was going to say sometimes, and this is just my opinion, but the way I
Mm-hmm.
would almost look at it, and from what I've heard from other podcasts that I listen to and stuff, when you start talking about one type of thing, and then you start mentioning this other thing that either may be connected or may not be connected, like you said, like again, it opens up that can of worms that you don't know what for dinner, basically, like
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I guess what I mean is, sometimes you just said it, like you weren't out seeking for the fights. It's anything, you were looking for
Hmm.
the signs of the creature, the Bigfoot, basically, and then you
Yeah.
got this instead. But it almost feels like nobody really want to even mention the lights. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've noticed.
Yeah, that's
um
very true. I have also noticed that, aside from places like obviously the Brown Mountain lights, people go there to look for the lights. Like, that's a thing. They know they occur, so they go there more so than looking for other things because it's famous for its lights. But so it wouldn't be weird to be like, yeah, I was out looking for the lights at Brown Mountain and I saw some. But I think, other than that, there's a level of acceptability with certain things right now in our culture, of what you can say you saw and that be accepted. And not a lot of people are really talking about, I saw lights in the woods. Also, when we used to talk about it more, like when it was, I mean, going back to even like old English and Welsh folklore and things like that, it existed. People would talk about will o' the wisp and things like that, but it had a negative connotation. You don't follow it. So, like, they've been around. It's not that it hasn't been in our vernacular in some form. It's just that we don't really talk about it. And so people don't, I mean, it's weird. It's hard enough. It's hard enough to be like, yeah, I was out in the woods and I think I saw a Bigfoot, like I saw this huge, hairy thing. And people second guess that. But Bigfoot's everywhere right now. There's TV shows, of course, YouTube. It's all over YouTube. It's in a pop culture right now. And I think that it's becoming more acceptable for people to come forward with their experiences. There isn't really a big movement at this moment in time, anyway, for weird lights. We don't even know how to categorize them, right? Even for people who've experienced it, we don't we don't even know what it is.
well, I mean, going back to it, I guess, I was trying to ask Ronald about this too, because he brought up the world of the Fae,
Mm-hmm.
and and then that kind of reminded me, like, well, he also wrote about, and there was another author too that escaped my mind right now, but he wrote a book called The Goblin Universe. So, and I asked Ronald, if the world of the Fae and the Goblin universe, are they like similar? And he said yes. So I didn't like. I'll probably say this a bunch of times now, but that's one question I didn't get a chance to really ask Ronald yet. But that's why he wants to come back on. But I guess Heather, if you don't know this answer, that's fine too. But in your research, have you learned anything about this whole like Goblin universe? Or Goblin universe.
No, not really. Honestly, I've heard the phrase while diving into some research, but in general, it's not a term that's widely used in the arenas that I'm researching right now. Obviously, it's out there, and people have, like you said, put books out there on it. But right now, at least in the research that I'm doing, which is very heavily Bigfoot slanted, um, even in the Bigfoot realm, the people that talk about Bigfoot being part of the Fae is very tiny. That exists, but the large preponderance of people, it's the debate over whether Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature versus some sort of paranormal type entity. The Fae kind of get left off in that discussion. It's there, but it's not a large part of the topic. So I honestly haven't come across a lot of people to dive into that question as much. And when it comes to the Fae, that whole like I know the standard stuff about you don't mess with the Fae, you don't mock the Fae. Like I understand that. I have heard that for a long time. I don't question that. You know, it's easier to just go along with it than to test the waters, I suppose. But yeah, I don't. I've never really dove into it myself.
Right. And you just kind of brought into that fact of, if Sasquatch is just a regular flesh and blood, or they have a supernatural side. And now I guess I'll throw the same question that I sort of did to Ronald, just to see like what you take. And again, for the listeners, this is Heather's opinion. I mean, I have my own opinion on it, and this is Heather's opinion. I mean, let's all be honest with each other. We all don't know what the hell is going on. All right. So anyway, in your opinion, Heather, so you got one half of the Bigfoot world where, like we just mentioned, flesh and blood. There's no ability to them at all. They can't come out of portals or anything. And then you get this other side where you start hearing stuff, start hearing encounters, or I don't even know a good word right now, but basically like this eyewitness of they found the tracks in the middle of winter. I'll just say for the example here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They follow them out into this big open field, and all of a sudden the track just stop. Why is that? So then there's people that go, well, this is the thing. They walked out there to the field, and then instead of just making more new tracks that look like they're walking back into the wood, they walk backwards into their tracks. So I kind of asked Ronald, this is the last part, by the way, is if I were to do that, right, or you, in the snow, I'm going to take one step first, one step with my left, just say for the example here, one to my right. Okay, now I want to go backward. I'm going to need to step, right or left first. But either way, you're going to make that double print in the snow. So you're going to know that you're going to see, whether you're wearing boots or shoes, you're going to see that double print. And so how do you feel about that whole category, I guess, of the two different sides?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's if something wants to remain elusive, walking out into an open field and then retracing your steps backwards is not your best way to do that, because you're taking twice as long to do something that you should, for what end, I have heard people suggest, and I don't think this would work so much with snow, but when you have prints in like muddy areas, maybe it would. But where people have suggested that the tracks vanish because at some point they get down on all fours and crawl in a way, so that the tracks would look different altogether. So there's that. I, as far as my opinion on things, it's hard for me to be definitive in that it's flesh and blood. And this is going against it's going against people I've talked to who are out in the field way more than I am. To be fair, I'm not out in the field all the time looking for Bigfoot. On occasion, but I'm not like staying out for days on end like Alex does. People that tend to be out more, it seems like, not all of them, but some of them that are out are like, no, I've been out there, I've seen these creatures, or I've interacted with them in one way or another, and they have to be a physical flesh and blood creature. They found nests. Why would something paranormal go through the effort of making a nest? Like, why would they need to do that? Things like that. Because if there's a nest, they're clearly reproducing, and they need to hide the young, and like, why do that if you're of a paranormal nature? However, I often wonder if we're not necessarily talking about two separate things, in that because my gut tells me that there has to be a paranormal aspect to it. One, because of the sheer number of people I've talked to that have had encounters that are just odd for just an animal. My own experiences have been very odd, and that it's hard to say that's just an animal. Not,
Could you
but
give us an example, Heather?
Well,
Hard.
like, no, you're fine. Like, okay, so if we had so for Bigfoot project, we were out here filming. We did have the lights in the woods a few times. If they're connected, how is that connected to a flesh and blood creature to just emit light? But in general, if it's an animal, the level of intelligence has to be extremely high, not just because it remains hidden, but because of what it does. I've had interactions where they take things, like this whole gifting thing that can occur. I had crystals out in the woods, which were not there for gifting. They were for something else. It was for like a treasure hunt for my kids. But the crystals, like, they would get taken, and in their place bones would be left behind. And then a month later, the crystal returns in the exact same place, except it's dirty now, like smeared fingerprints and stuff on it. Like, that level of intelligence to me is more than just a regular animal. Like, that's, I don't know. I don't study apes, so maybe it's not that far off from a regular ape. But also, and this could be something weird, like maybe there's just something weird happening here. Like, we have the lights, we have Sasquatch activity, but we also have other things happening here that are more like ghostly, paranormal things that happen on this property, which leads me to considering, if there is a Sasquatch and it is flesh and blood, maybe those people are right. Maybe then this other aspect that seems otherworldly is more of a trickster type thing, a whole different entity altogether that may manifest in different ways to provoke a fear response or whatever. Maybe that's kind of what's going on. Like, a friend pitched that idea to me at one point a few years ago. She's like, well, what if it's, because I had no question that there was something that was like a trickster-like energy on this property based on all kinds of weird stuff that was happening paranormal-like wise. And then the Estes method stuff that was coming through on the Estes method, voices like that everybody in the family was hearing, like something mimicking our voices, stuff like that. So we always just said there was a trickster here. And weird stuff's also happening outside the house. It's not just in the house. And then my friend's like, well, maybe the trickster's both. And I was like, you know what? Maybe the trickster, maybe part of what's going on is the trickster outside, and we're just attributing that to Bigfoot because that's what makes sense. Like, oh yeah, of course, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. I should say very loosely, because I don't know how many people that makes sense to unless they're already in this field. But, maybe if there is a trickster type energy, why not manifest as something like Bigfoot to spook people out, to freak them out? And then you could disappear because you're not of this earth anyway, or of this plane, I should say.
Right.
And then that accounts for what some people are seeing. They're actually seeing something that's more like a trickster type element going on. I don't know. I have no idea. I definitely, I could say that we've had stuff happen here. I've set recorders out. I've heard things walk in on two legs into the barn, and mess with stuff. I've got a recording of something walking in and literally messing with things as if it's never seen, uh, like pieces of metal and stuff. Like it's just fidgeting with stuff. Like it doesn't even know what it is. Like, what is this? What is this going to do? Like it was real curious, And to me, that'd be like a juvenile type behavior is what my gut would tell me. A young Bigfoot coming in and being like, oh, hey, what is this? Click, 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 and then tapping on, because where the recorder was, I had it like on the four-wheeler that was in the barn. You can hear it like tap along the four-wheeler, like fingers tapping along the four-wheeler. And so I'm like, okay, that's a physical creature, right? That's no question. But then the level of intelligence too is that like they've come up, like when things have gotten weird, they've come up to the house. Like the kids have been in the living room and something's tapped on the window. I'm guessing just to see what their reaction would be, because then the kids freak out and then they come running to me, and then I, look outside and there's nothing there. But like, I don't know, why would a deer's not going to do that and come up and just tap on the window for your reaction. It's not going to come in and just fidget with stuff. Like, I don't know. And I don't know, maybe my hesitancy as well to say that it's just everything is just a flesh and blood creature is that's terrifying. In one way, I am more at peace with something that's outside of my normal realm existing. I can be like, all right, I get that. You're on a different plane of existence. Ghosts don't scare me, really. Like, okay, I get it. I for some reason, my brain can compartmentalize that just fine. But the idea of a flesh and blood creature that is that smart out there terrifies me to no end. And it's one of those things where, like, we've had stuff here, we've been outside, and it sounded like it's walked right up. We can hear something walking right up the side of the house, just around the corner. Like, it's just right around the corner. And the night that happened, my husband and I were outside, and we're both hearing it walking behind the house, right up to the edge where we are. And I said out loud at that point, I'm like, I am not ready to see you right now. I'm not ready for this. And then, my husband like yelled or let out, like he clapped his hands or something, like a loud noise to try to scare it away. Nothing ran away either. It just didn't pop around the corner. So I don't know what it was doing, but it's also unnerving on another aspect too. When stuff happens, I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, but when stuff happens, like here at your house,
mm-hmm.
at your home is different. Like we did a whole series, Bigfoot Project, because of activity that was happening here, but it wasn't happening directly at the house. It was we have 300 acres of land here and a hunting cabin on the back end of the acreage. Stuff was happening back there, away from the house. That was cool. That was exciting. Awesome. It's not here at my back door. Stuff that's happened more recently was here. And then it becomes more of an issue of, well, I've got kids that go outside. I mean, not that they don't go up in the woods sometimes too, but for some reason it was just different. Like, okay, but it was literally right outside the window. Like that
Nope,
it just becomes totally too much.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, no, it's like, oh man, I forget what the podcast, how they word it, but it's like, it's all fun and games until it followed you back home or something like that. But yeah. But in a way, how did they also put it? It's like, well, you're going into their backyard, so why not have them come into your backyard per se? It's kind of like that I don't even know a good term right now to word it, but it's like, people complain about how, once upon a time the bear just stayed in the wood. But oh my God, all of a sudden now you start taking the woods away and now the bears are coming into your
Yeah.
neighborhood. It's like, it's the same thing, I feel like. You're going into their wood or their backyard, and now they're going to go into their backyard. The only difference is we kill them and ask questions later, which we just can't seem to, I don't know, coexist, I guess, would be the way I want to say it. But I want to go back to one of the parts that kind of, I don't know why, but it triggered a memory that I have. But I want to ask, and I already probably know the answer. I still just want to ask anyway. When you talked about it tapped on your window and you said you looked outside. Now, do you mean you stayed in your house to look outside, or did you actually physically go outside?
No. So the way the house is shaped, it's like almost like a U shape, and the kids were in the one half of the U, and my husband and I were in the other. The kids were playing out in the living room here, and they said it sounded like something literally just knock knock on the window right next to so they ran around and got us. There's a door off the back side of where we are. Mm-hmm. So we immediately, as soon as they said that, because I can, like, right where I'm sitting, I can look and see that side, and the door's right immediately beside me. Mm-hmm. We just went out, flipped the lights on, went out.
Okay.
And nothing was there. And part of that is, well, for one, my husband's not really afraid of anything, but two, when the kids are freaked out, you can't also be freaked out, or it's going to cause a whole other mess. So you've got to be, kind of aggressive, like, well, something outside, because what if it was a person? That's even scarier. Like, as much as I'm scared of an idea of an 8-foot tall ape or whatever knocking on the window, what if it was some weirdo outside? Like, they need to know, there are adults here and they're going to take this seriously. So, we just immediately ran outside and there was nothing there. Now, I don't know of course, by the time they got around to us, something could have just left as soon as they screeched, and it could have got around the house before we would have known what was going on, but there wasn't a person anyway.
Right. So I bring it up because I think it was like winter time. I'm trying to remember all the details of this, but I was still kind of young in school still. But basically, I was sleeping one night. I think I was trying to get ready for school the next day, and all of a sudden, I heard like on my bedroom window. So of course, I'm like shot up, and I'm like, like what? So the crazy thing about this is, and I remember this is specifically winter, and my mother's boyfriend went outside to look, and he came back in and said, I don't know, because there's no tracks, there's no footprint, and and I'm talking snow. So what the hell?
Yeah.
So
yeah. When this happened, there wasn't any snow. It was spring. It was actually, I remember it was just this year. And it was right after the equinox, because what seemed to like kick off a bunch of weird stuff was that around the equinox, there was this, like, I forget what they had called it, but like a super blood moon or something. Like, you go outside and it was a full moon, it was bright red and all this stuff, and it all coincided with the equinox, so it was like a big deal. And like the first weird thing that we noticed is that we went outside to see it. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning when it was like at full. It was an eclipse. That's right. That's why it was red. It was an eclipse. I forgot. Lunar eclipse. Full lunar eclipse. That's why it was a big deal. And it was like 2-ish, something like that, when it was at totality. So we had all gone to bed and set an alarm and got up and came out to check it out. And my youngest daughter, and I were the first ones out. We're out there no less than 2 minutes, probably. And a howl goes off in the distance. Unlike anything I'd really heard before. Just the weirdest howl. And it lasted like 8 to 10 seconds. It was long and drawn out. And then it was quiet, And my daughter looks at me and she goes, "What was that?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm hitting record on my phone and I'm going to catch it if I can." And, held my phone up and it went off again. This went on like, I forget, I don't know right now. It wasn't quiet more than a couple minutes before it would go off again. But it wasn't like a siren or anything. It never got closer. It was the same distance the whole time. And that was the same night that we heard something walking up by the house and everything else. But I don't know. The point is that it was in the spring. It was like March, I think mid-March-ish. So there was no snow on the ground at that point anyway. And the weather was like unseasonably warm. Not that night. It was pretty cold that night because I remember coming in and my fingers were like frozen. But I was able to sit outside for a few weeks after that, and I would work because I work from home. So I just take my computer on the back patio and work, and there would be tree knocks most of the times that I was outside. And I have some of those tree knocks too that I was able to record. Some of them are very close, very loud. I just ignore them and just note them, but ignore them. I wouldn't really react. And all of that, it was pretty active there for several weeks. But then what ended up happening was it started raining all the time. And then as soon as it stopped raining, raining to the point that we were getting flooding. And then once the rain kind of subsided, then it shot up to like 90 plus degrees here where it was unbearable to be outside. So I have not been outside much here at this house, unless I have to go out for filming or something. I haven't been out, honestly, very much at all the last few months. So I don't know if things are still going on. Nothing's come up that I know of and tapped on the windows. The kids haven't freaked out. So if something's still out there knocking on trees or whatever, and maybe they wouldn't knock on trees if nobody's out there. I mean, for all I know, they're knocking on trees because they're like, hey, somebody's out here. Just letting others know. Someone, human, don't walk this way. I don't know. So, I don't know. I fully felt like, based on the weird things that were occurring here, that there must have been a juvenile just because of how curious and how bold it was getting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's almost like a toddler, right? They're gonna touch things and do all kinds of stuff because they're curious. And I mean, I feel like when you hear about the juvenile thing, just the same thing, But then you hear sometimes where like people will mention something like, oh, the little one gets caught. It's almost like the parent. Whichever parent is there, it's almost like they're getting scolded because they got seen,
Yeah,
So I don't know if I would say that's hilarious per se, but it is at the same time. But I mean, it's because it's almost like, and this is just, back to the whole opinion thing. Like, I just don't know. Like, do we treat that like at that point in time, right, when we know that we're seeing the juvenile? And then, all of a sudden we know mommy or daddy or both of them are right nearby. Do we then start treating it like we would, like an actual predator, like a bear, right? Like once we see that bear cub, like all hell breaks loose, right, with the parents. So is it the same thing? I guess it all depends on who is telling the story at that point. And I'm just saying that because you hear stuff where it bluff charges them, it just kind of walked off, but it kind of gives you that face like, so I don't know. I mean, that's just my take is like, well, do we approach it like that? And then how do we approach it like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is why I'm like so conflicted about what Sasquatch might be, because when the most recent stuff was happening and it seemed as if there was a juvenile around here, obviously my brain is going flesh and blood. I'm catching it on audio. I'm hearing it walking. I'm hearing it touch things in a physical sense. So your brain goes to that. And then if it's a juvenile, then my brain as a mother went to, then there's a mom nearby. Therefore, I'm worried about my kids accidentally wandering upon a child, a juvenile, and scaring it. Like, some accident of some sort. Like if there's a little one, then there's a big one not far, and it's probably mom, and she's probably going to be protective. And if I didn't have kids of my own, that may not have been as big of a concern for me. But because I had children, I was like, I'm a little like, I don't want you guys outside unless I'm outside too. Like it was kind of a thing. Like, I know you guys like to explore, but we're gonna curb it for a few weeks, okay? You guys just stick closer to the house. Only go outside if I'm outside. I'll go outside all the time, but like I want to make sure that there's an adult out there with you, that kind of thing. And yeah, it was treating it more like as if there were a bear in the area. Like I've got to have eyes on you at all times.
Right. And so you brought up a point too that again I've heard different things about, which is the mom Sasquatch per se, which is I wouldn't necessarily again, this is from what I've heard, so I don't know. My opinion again. I'm just going to say that again because anyway, I don't want to talk about that point, but I think like you, Heather, should know what I'm trying to get at. But anyway, the mother, when like you were just saying the whole protectiveness, I really don't think it's the mother you would have to worry about. I think it's the father per se, because I think with the mother, I think the mother will understand, like, oh, it's just like a little human. I'm just going to say it like that because who knows what the hell they think about. And, again, that kind of falls into, well, they have a little one too. So when they see a little human, are they thinking the same thing in a way, like, oh, it's just a child, or however they look at it? But I almost think it's the male, because again, we're of course going to be the fathers that are like, kind of. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. But I feel like this is a good segment, real quick, to switch back over real quick, and we can kind of actually maybe combine the two again with this as well. But I want to go back real quick to the light, and then we can wrap it up with you, Heather, because I don't want to take too much longer of your time. But and please correct me on this part, but when it came to the Phantom Lights again, for the area of the Chestnut Ridge, because I think you also were doing the research with Ronald, but you guys started to talk about the mining company, I guess, for lack of wording here, around that area of Chestnut, which is again where these lights are showing up. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, going back to your property too, we can actually kind of use it like this, and I can use it with what I just learned with the Benedictine Triangle too, which I will say real quick is, so I know I mentioned it, I think, for your upcoming documentary thing of the Benedictine Triangle, where I was talking about how these hikers were hiking up Benedictine Mountain. They saw these mysterious lights that looked like they were coming toward them, which freaked them out to the point where they ran down the mountain. And I think that's just because, like, as you were discussing, it almost looked like somebody with a headlamp or some type of flashlight or lantern walking down, and you're supposed to think you're going to run into somebody, and then you don't. Maybe once they realized there was nobody holding the light, maybe that's what made them turn around and book it. Now, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to what I had sent you earlier, Heather, but my friend's story, which I didn't know anything of until, I recorded that with her experience. But once again, she's another one that described the light as a flashlight. And I thought that's so interesting because, again, just like Ronald and I and everybody, once we start talking about it and see the similarities, you can't deny that. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, so, during the documentary, you guys are talking about, and again, I don't know if it was you or Ronald, maybe a little bit of both, but you guys started talking about the mining, maybe it was Tyler for all I know too, but the mining, which then leads into the whole mineral to how Ronald called it the earthlight, which I find fascinating. And I can see why because of the minerals, et cetera, and all this type of conductor, like flowing water, this and that. That could be a whole podcast anyway. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, so after talking with Ronald, I did some digging myself because I was curious because I never thought of it as, and I literally looked up mines around Bennington. We have 7 mines around Bennington area. 7. And some of them are about an hour and a half away, but then you have some that are like right around Shaftesbury and Summit and Woodford, which is south of the mountain, and then you got like Old Bennington. Crap. I don't have my notes probably for that yet, but basically what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of mines on the left side, and then there's like one particular one on the right side of the mountain, and then another one on the south side. So I find that very interesting that it's almost like there's mines almost surrounding this mountain. And then I started to think, well, if this is supposed to be the recipe for these lights per se, and I'm just saying that because I just really don't know, but if that's what it takes, these minerals to form these energies, because something needs a conductor like this to draw energy from. So I guess I want to bring it back to your case, which is your property. Is there any mines around your area? Otherwise, like, what's your area like? I know you kind of said woods and stuff, but is there like water nearby? Is there like wild berries, like something that would be able to live off?
Oh, yeah. We have. Okay, so I just Googled right now to make sure I understood the mine thing. Yeah, we have mines in this county. I don't know how many. It just says we have a history of active and abandoned mines. We do have water here. We've got flowing water. There are natural springs on this property. Our water that we drink is from a spring just right across the road. So we've got the natural springs. We've got berries everywhere. There are some caves around. They're not huge, but there are some caves around. There are those kind of things. I can't think of a place directly near us. I don't know where the mine shafts are. There are strip mines everywhere. Actually, the Minerva Monster case from the 70s, that was right by a strip mine in Minerva. And that's not far away from here either, because my address literally is Minerva. It's just a few miles away where the Cadens had their encounter or encounters. So we've got all of that going on right here. One thing
so it sounds like it's a good recipe then for this type of stuff. Then.
Yeah. So when we did the Bigfoot project, it was one of the final episodes of the series. We actually brought Cliff from Finding Bigfoot out and had him stay here for a little bit and, kind of get his opinion on it. And because of the way the farm is here, he was like, it was almost like something would have to be passing through. We have woods here and stuff, but not anything that would be, even on 300 acres, it's a mix of woods and fields, right? There's not like a dense forest for something to live for an extended period of time and remain hidden. So perhaps it's traversing between multiple farms. It's not like bedding down here or anything, whatever it may be. But I took him to where I grew up, which is in Carrollton. It's 10 miles away from here. It's not that far at all. And I took him to the woods behind the house that I grew up in. And he was like, now this is where they would be. And the difference was that there was what he called, like, there were deep ravines there. And he was like, this is similar to what I call a box canyon, or what is called a box canyon, where if something were to like run prey into an area, it's blocked off on three sides. You can be above and watch down. You can run them in. You can run them over the side and drop down in. And that's what is on that side of the county. We do have ravines here. We have a little, like a sort of, not much of one here, but there is a pretty decent hill. But the steep ravines are on the southern side of the county in Carroll County. And I mean, they're very steep. And so if anything is traversing, I don't know what their home range is either. You know, like maybe it's completely feasible that something that's on the south side of the county is going to also walk up here to the north side of the county just on its regular routine, or depending on the season even. I don't know, because I doubt that they go miles and miles and miles, like hundreds of miles. Like they're not going down to Florida every winter. That would be a little much, but you know, if they've got a decent sized home range, then yeah, maybe they're here in the spring, into the fall, and then in the winter, maybe they're closer to those ravines. I don't know. But another thing about those lights that because I had looked into stuff too. Ron's the one that mentioned the mines and the lights. Like I've come across in my research one story relating to a light like in a mine, which I think is a whole separate thing altogether. But when I was looking into stuff like Ron was talking about, I came across a phenomenon that they know exists. It's called like earthquake lights, which, so apparently right before earthquakes, we've observed the lights. So the movement with those minerals and stuff together can cause lights to appear beforehand. And I find that very interesting as well. So I wonder if there's a preponderance of these lights around fault lines. And I don't know where all the fault lines are. I know we get earthquakes every once in a while. It's rare, but we do get them in Ohio. I don't know where all the fault lines are. It's nothing as huge as what you have in California, of course. But I wonder if that doesn't also play a little bit of a piece to the puzzle, that we're on some fault line in some way, and there's just a little bit of movement, just very ever so slightly, and then that causes these lights. I don't know. That's completely unscientific, uneducated guess, but
Well, I mean that's what we all want, right? Is to get the scientists to start looking into it. I would
yeah,
hope, but I mean,
yeah,
again, I mean, I don't know. You don't really know. I mean, we can just go by hearsay that say what we research and hear, and just witness ourselves,
yeah.
really. So, but Heather, I appreciate your time. I really don't want to take more. You've already taken or used some time already that I feel like this would be a good way to just end for now. But I mean, it's a pleasure to have you, and I guess in your sake, like, is there any project that you are currently working on that we can look forward to see from you for Small Town Monsters?
Well, most recently, of course, there's the Monroe Monster that you mentioned earlier that just came out recently that Courtney and I got to direct. The Monster on Morris Mountain, which was our endeavor with Hellbent Holler, and they completely knocked it out of the park on that.
Totally.
Coming up this fall, actually, we have Lost Contact is coming out soon, finally. It was something that we wrapped up a while ago. Kickstarter backers have had it for months, but we're finally getting a release date in October.
Ooh.
And the same thing with Cursed Waters will be coming out in October as well.
Ooh, my
And
birthday month.
yeah, that's a good month. And maybe something else also on the horizon. And we've got another special coming that we haven't announced officially later this year. So that, and then of course YouTube is an unending stream of new stuff. New stuff. So there'll be new Heartland Sasquatch that's coming. Courtney and I we've so far included Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky so far in the Heartland series, because we can't encompass the whole thing all at once, so we're slowly integrating states. Next up is Indiana, if all goes well. So we'll see.
Perfect. Well, Heather, again, thank you for your time, and I would love to talk to you again for when from beyond the oh my god, the High Strangers of the Benetton Triangle. Oh man, I probably
Yeah.
butchered that title. But man, I feel like that's like one of the longest titles yet. So anyway, I would love
Yeah,
to talk to you about that though. One the backers get it because kind of like with Lost
absolutely.
Contact, yeah. Who knows when the public will see it, but I
Mhm.
mean, I'd love to hear more and everything else because um, I'll just say this for I guess the teaser for maybe next time for people. But you guys talked about on your Monsteropolis podcast, which I didn't realize you guys had an episode for the Vermont edition, I think, as it was called. It was
Yeah,
actually another friend of mine who pointed it out because he was asking me about a question that you guys had said, and I said, "Oh, I'll have to listen to this and see like what you know what you're talking about," because you were trying to describe it, but I was just like, I'll just listen and get back to you. So yeah, I will just leave it as that because I think that would be a great way to also introduce that episode. So, and another reason why I'd love to talk to you again.
sounds good to me.
All right. Well, for everybody else listening, you know the drill. Just keep your eyes open and your ears open because you just never know what the hell you're going to find and hear out there in those woods. And then always report back because we just want to hear it. And I guess I'm just going to start making this a new thing, which is because without you guys coming in and sharing, we cannot learn together. And if we are together, that's when we can learn.